All right, welcome back to New Record Day, Sound Clips with Commentary, Bose 901s. Let's have a chat. Computer running into the Bifrost 2, running into the Freya Plus with the tubes engaged, running into a pair of Agers. So we're supplying the 901s with 90-ish watts, somewhere around there. I know that a lot of the Bose 901 guys are going to show up and they're going to say, hey, not enough, man. You really got to feed those a lot of power to get them to wake up and to sound their best. And I digress. You certainly might be right, and I plan on doing exactly that. But this is what I have to work with for now. I hate that I have to start with this disclaimer, to be frank with you guys. Let's just be kind. Try to be kind in the comments section. Let's move on. Bose 901s, here's the deal. Let me go ahead and pull up a couple of things here real fast. Without an EQ, here is the frequency response. I have that on screen right now, and we can clearly see that with no EQ, these guys drop off like a rock right around, oh, what is that, 70 hertz, somewhere around there. And then when we go up top, 7K, somewhere around there, they drop off like a rock. Now, with Room EQ Wizard, what I'm able to do is from the microphone position, which is where you guys are going to be hearing the 901s from, I'm able to at least simulate what the EQ is actually doing, and that's we're gonna hear these with the EQs. With the EQs enabled, let's take a look at the left and the right speaker. You can see that the frequency response on top, that top line, that is with the simulated EQ enabled through Room EQ Wizard. What does that mean? It means that this is not an actual measurement. It is doing its best estimation that with EQ being taken into consideration, this is the frequency response that we're going to end up with. Now, if this is true, then with the EQ enabled, we do have, bass down into even as low as the 30s, 35. That's what I'm looking at, right? And then if we go up top, we have top end extension all the way out to, it looks like right around 12-ish, 13, and then it starts to fall. So you got to have EQ enabled with the Bose 901s, otherwise they just don't sound very good. In fact, let's go ahead and just end this debate in a quick hurry. So the bottom line is this, and even, the folks that love the Bose 901s, they're going to tell you, without an EQ, no, it's not gonna work. Now, if we enable the EQ through Roon, let's go ahead and play that same track again with the EQ enabled. The EQ that we have enabled with the 901s through Roon, there's two bands that we're boosting. We have 35 hertz, and that is boosted by, let me just double check, 12 dB. And then we have 15,000, which is boosted by 16 dB. So very aggressive EQ is being used here to get this sound. Another thing that I want to mention here, just showing a bit of grace to any of the Bose 901 guys and gals that show up and say, hey, that's not what the Bose 901s sound like at all. Trying to mic the Bose 901s is rather problematic. Not easy to do. I would imagine that in the event where I had like a a nice binaural microphone, or perhaps a Yecklin disc, which I'm in the process of making one right now, we might have ended up with better results or closer to what I'm hearing from the listening position. But that's why my commentary is going to be so important. So let's go ahead and play that track one more time, and then I will tell you exactly what I think. So seeing that we're walking through treble impressions, I'm focused on the sound of that hi-hat, and having heard this track a number of times with a lot of different speakers, this does not sound the way that it has sounded on every single speaker that we have been listening to. To me, with the 901s, it actually sounds exaggerated in terms of how spitty it sounds. It sounds very spitty to me. One of the things that I'm trying to pay attention to is basically all of those little intricate details that we've heard on this track before, and I'm having a hard time hearing every single detail. To me, it kind of sounds like it's sort of smeary, I guess would be the way that I would try to explain it, is, those beads that, we hear. Typically they're just suspended in air, and it's very easy to kind of localize where they are at. And with the 901s, not so much. Okay, I can't ignore it. The bass was farting out on that track. I mean, I think that you guys should be able to clearly hear that in the clips, but the bass that I was hearing there, it was not the way that it's supposed to sound at all. Now, setting that to the side, this is typically one of my favorite tracks on this part of the Sound Clips with Commentary, because at the end, we have all of these like really intricate, very detailed rhythm percussive type things, and in every single speaker that I've heard in-house so far, they're front and center. And what's strange about it with the 901s is some of it was front and center, but it also sounded kind of almost as if it melted off to the sides of the fireplace and then down lower. And it made it really hard to hear every single detail that was, typically offered with other speakers that we've heard in-house. It just didn't have the clarity that I've heard before. So normally with this one, and this is really strange. So normally with this track, it kind of shows me the scale of the speakers, how big that they can sound. And as an example, like with the Spatial Sapphires, the Anexoticas, or really even just like those ELACs that I recently, I recently had in house, that sounds big in the room. And consistently, every single one of those speakers has presented this track in a very big way. With the 901s, not so much. And that actually surprises me, because you would think that with all of these drivers in the back that is shooting all of these frequencies on the front wall, if we're going to call it the front wall, and they're, supposed to wrap around me, that I would expect to hear scale with these speakers. Like, wow, this sounds huge. No, I didn't hear that at all. And at the end of that track, another thing that I'm always paying attention to is that when the acoustics stop, that abrupt stop, there is this reverb trail that kind of gives you an idea of just how big that room actually sounded. And I had a hard time hearing the trail. I could hear it, nowhere near what it's like with pretty much every speaker that I've had in house. And on top of that, it didn't at all give me that sense of, wow, that's just how big that room actually was. If anything, it was more like, oh, okay, so they used some reverb in this track. So it wasn't the same experience that I've had pretty much with every other speaker that I've had in house. So similar to how I felt with the first track, I'm hearing it again, is there's something about the top end, anything cymbal related, hi-hat related, there's something really spitty. So that's going to lead us down the conversation of, well, okay, it can be fixed by giving them, more wattage. Hey, that's possible. Sure, okay, we can explore that down the road. But if we can't fix that, then it's kind of a non-starter conversation, because when I want to listen to, anything percussive with cymbals and, top-end extension, I want to know what the cymbal actually sounds like. I don't want it to be emphasized with this kind of spitty type sound. I don't like that at all. So top-end extension, Bose 901s, not my favorite. I'm just being honest here. I report what I hear. I want to do it in a respectful way, but I didn't really enjoy that all that much. All right, let's go ahead and try upper mid-range. So this is the track that we always play with upper mid-range, to where we can kind of hear some music that's just not so well recorded. Those guitars are pretty grungy sounding, and it's just not the best recording ever. I felt like everything sounded rather dark. There was just really no life to that track, and even though it doesn't have a whole lot of life to begin with, whatever life that it normally does have when we are listening to other speakers, I just wasn't hearing that all that much with these guys. You know what? Screw it. I gotta try something, guys. Sorry, this is a little weird, but let me try that one again. Okay, so the reason why I came down here is normally this track sounds up here and big and wide, There's a lot going on in the track, and if I'm down here, I am getting quite a bit more body. There's no doubt about that, but it's still not, the scale of these speakers is probably the most surprising thing about them so far, is they kind of sound small. They don't sound like this big wave of music that just, falls over you. And that's kind of how a lot of the 901 guys and gals have described these over the years is, man, you just get this big wall of sound. But so far, to be frank with you, I'm not hearing that. I'm really not. It sounds, most of the energy is down low. Obviously, we have the tulip stands, which, let's get this part right. I love the looks of the Bose 901s, and I wish that we had speakers that look like this because I think they look totally cool, but they're down low. And so a lot of the energy that, you know, I'm used to being up higher, it's all concentrated down here. And combined with the fact that these drivers are all playing down low, it seems to me like I'm not getting the lift that I need to get things up higher where they belong. And now's a good time to mention that when Joe, the owner of the Bose 901s, came over to my house and set these up with me, he did say that. He said, hey, you know, get these up off the ground. They really shouldn't be on those tulip stands. They need to be higher. And he is totally right about that. If I'm sitting down here, there's some trade-offs, of course. There's always trade-offs in hi-fi, but it's a little bit better. All right, let's move on. That one was not too bad. That one was better. Not bad at all. Okay, so those two tracks back to back, those are certainly better than some of the others that we've heard. Our guitar friend is back by the lamps where he belongs, and he's playing over there, and it sounds fine. There's some percussive stuff going on, some cymbals that are going on, and they do not sound spitty on this track, so that might be like a frequency type thing, where at a certain frequency we're getting that kind of spitty kind of a sound, and I'm not hearing that on this track, so not bad, little Bose 901s. Hang in there, guys, you can do it. Let's go ahead and do this last track here. Okay, a little bit spitty with the cymbals on that one, not as bad as the others, but I do hear that same thing that I've heard before. It's hard to ignore the mid bass and the bass being pretty darn bloated sounding, and there's almost this cardboard-like effect that I'm hearing in the music that I'm just not a big fan of. So that one, not so good. All right, now that one was interesting. Sounded quite a bit bigger than the other tracks, so that's a celebration. That's a good thing. That 10 whistle that we hear on the left-hand side, it was not punching through the mix like it normally does. There's times where, depending on the speaker that we're listening to, that sucker is really punching out of the mix, and you can clearly hear it. It is isolated, it is by itself, and with these, I kind of felt like it was just thrown into the rest of, you know, the acoustic guitar and everything else that we're hearing. And so there was quite a bit more body, quite a bit more scale in that one. The 10 whistle, on the other hand, wasn't popping out like it normally does, so a bit of a mixed bag. time to talk about soundstage. You would think that these would be masters in that category, that this track, typically we have a bowling alley right in the middle, just all the way back, even into the backyard. And with these, no, we don't. What it sounds to me like is the soundstage is as far back as the fireplace, and everything around here is just kind of coming to life. So think of like a football shape, if you will. That's your soundstage right there. And there really is no layering, depth perception of here's one instrument right here, here's one behind it, here's one behind it. None of that is happening. It actually just sounds like you have some depth as far back as a fireplace, and everything is just kind of focused in this general area. So, yeah, I don't know about that one. All right, so on this one, the staging was actually a bit better than the last one. I did hear some depth beyond the fireplace, so we did have a bit more distance with this one, and I couldn't help but notice that I could identify the bass notes, even though we're not talking about bass yet. I could identify the bass notes on this one a bit more clearly than some of the other tracks, so that's good. All right, so on that track, I'm paying attention to the congas and the bongos. Do they have body? Do they have some weight to them? And on that track, I can say, yeah, they did. So they had that going for them. That's good, right? Let's go ahead and move on. Normally, these kind of darker piano notes are over off to the left-hand side, and there's typically a separation from everything else that is playing in this track, and with these guys, I'm not getting that. There's really no separation, and so everything kind of sounds like it's all stuck together. Mid-range on these, really hard to figure out. You know, it's difficult to say, do they have a specific flavor in the mid-band? They sound rather dark to me in the mid-range. I'm not getting a whole lot of clarity. I'm not getting a whole lot of detail retrieval out of the mid-band so far. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like maybe what these are missing so far as we're starting to get lower and lower in frequencies is I'm not getting a whole lot of presence out of these speakers. I can tell clearly that the design goal is to have, you know, reflected frequencies bouncing all around the room, and that's fine, that's cool. It's fun, I'll give you that, it's certainly fun, but I'm just not getting a whole lot of presence out of these at all. All right, so normally with this track, as we're hearing these drums, these kind of low, deep drums, there's quite a bit of body that we normally hear in the mid bass, and these are actually they're doing a pretty good job with that. And so I'm not hearing the drivers fart out. I'm not hearing anything that sounds terrible with those particular drums. So that's good. What is weird about this track is there's this chain thing that's happening, or like a bell or something like that. And normally it is pinpoint, laser line, I know exactly where it is. And with these, it was strange. It almost sounds like there's two of them at the exact same time, and that was rather confusing. It was hard to isolate where is that actually coming from. And so here we are talking about mid-bass, but I can't help but notice that what I normally hear in every single speaker that we've had in-house, I'm hearing it differently, and that is messing with me. Stop messing with me, Bose. Dr. Bose 901. Right on the edge of kind of farting out with the mid bass and the bass, but kind of kept it together on that track. That one didn't sound so bad. All right, as soon as the bass kicks in with that track, sounded rather bloated, to be honest with you. Not great, not great. That I definitely could hear. Those are drivers that are trying to play bass and they can't. You know, they can't do it with authority, with confidence. Not my favorite. Pretty much the same commentary. Unfortunately, I felt like the drivers were starting to give up the ghost, and I could hear them farting out. And that's not a pleasing sound. You don't want to hear that in the music, and so it was hard to concentrate on the congas and the bongos when what I'm hearing is that slap and that hit, and then the driver is, it's actually breaking up. It's not able to produce those frequencies, so not great on that one. That one sounded pretty darn good. I mean, that one wasn't too bad. I didn't mind that one so much, and what was interesting about it is that when those organs come on at the end and I was waiting for it, there was actually decent separation with that one. So, that one wasn't too bad. Interesting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, bass with the Bose 901s. Here we go. So I suspect that while these are getting down into the 40s, possibly, are they doing it with confidence? I don't know about that. All right, so in this particular track, I heard it once again, and it was a bit distracting, but that hi-hat, emulated hi-hat sound, really spitty sounding. I did not like that at all. And when I tried to focus on the bass, I found myself distracted by, again, what it sounds like is the drivers are just kind of crapping out. They're not giving me the goods with authority. They're trying, but they're just not really doing it. So while I didn't hear the drivers kind of crapping out on us, I still wasn't getting a whole lot of really deep bass content at all. Normally, this track, it hits, and it's like, wow. When you listen to this, like with the Sapphires or the Exoticas with open baffle subs, obviously a completely different league of speaker than what we're dealing with, but when it comes to lower deep bass, you know it. I mean, there is no mistaking it. I could have anybody sit in here, listen to it, and they would go, wow. I think anybody hearing that on these would probably say, okay, well, those are cool looking speakers. I don't think that they would walk away saying, man, holy smokes, the bass on that was really impressive. Not at all. I'm still not getting really deep bass. I'm missing that on these tracks. Normally I can hear it and hear it easily. And with these, they're not digging down super, super low. So if you decide to get a pair of 901s, I can tell you right now, you're going to need some subs, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. You got to have subs. And so let's go ahead and talk about what I would do. Let me get back up here. Oh, I'm getting old, guys. All right. Here's what I would do. So clearly, I mean, we haven't gotten to vocals, and we'll do that in a minute. But for those of you that love the Bose 901s, and for those of you that feel like, man, I just completely blasted these things, let's just relax for a minute. And let me say this. There are some good qualities that I am hearing out of the Bose 901s. There are some things that it's doing that I think is kind of fun and kind of interesting. I wish they sounded bigger than what they actually sound like in room. I was kind of expecting that the 901s were going to freak me out in this way of just like, wow, that is larger than life. And I think then I would probably be able to celebrate these a bit more than I did. I'm wondering if all I need is just more power in order to accomplish that. And that's possible. That's possible. So we'll hang in there, and I welcome your ideas and suggestions. I'm a reasonable guy. But what I would say is this. What if we got these up higher, and underneath these we put open baffle H-frame subs, and then we go back to the EQ, we get the bass off of these drivers, and we let the open baffle H frames do all the work in bass town, and then let's see what happens.
I don't wanna be loved by you, be loved by you. I don't need to be hurt or rescued, not by you. Not so close, you're eating my space. Don't inhale so much.
That's probably enough there. Not bad, actually. Typically, her voice has more presence to it. It has more clarity. It kind of sounded sort of echoey in a way. It sounded kind of smeary in a way. I wasn't getting a clear image of her voice. It was not a situation where you get a laser line image around her voice. It sounded almost as if it was just sort of smeared up on the wall.
I will get close to your heartache if you want to open your door. I'm feeling kinda lost when your mind is hiding whatever that is choking your chest. I can see it in your eyes that you
So with that one, I can pretty much say the exact same thing, that in terms of the vocals, she is front and center, so that's good. She's not all over the place. You know, it's not scattered everywhere. It's positioned where it should be. I think that she sounds larger than life, and that is not a good thing. I think that she sounds bigger than what she should sound like and how she sounds like on pretty much every single speaker that, you know, we've been checking out so far here at New Record Day. She doesn't have precision around her voice as well, so everything kind of just smears into the wall. That's what it sounds like to me. So not as much clarity, not as much presence in vocals with female vocals, for sure. I can say that with authority. All right, male vocals, here we go.
You tell me you're scared. You tell me you're weak, but I know you're stronger than what you think.
Well, that's interesting. That actually sounded a bit better than the female vocals did. So maybe these are playing within a certain band of frequencies that the 901s just seem to do a better job with, but that did have it had a little bit more clarity, a little bit more presence than the female vocals did. Still not as much as I want and what I've heard out of those vocals, but that was not too bad. Let's go ahead and try this last track.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic.
And we're kind of back to this smeary kind of a sound in the vocals. Not concise, not clean, not laser etch around it. It just kind of sounds like it's just smeared up on the wall. It's fun. Yes, it is fun. That's an interesting effect to hear, but it doesn't sound like somebody is singing in front of you. It sounds too big for that. It sounds like that is just huge sounding. It almost takes up it's almost as if his voice is the size of my entire fireplace. It's like that, a big mouth. And that is not realistic sounding to me. It's fun, but does it sound natural? Does it sound real? No, it doesn't. So almost all of the vocals here share in that same attribute of kind of a smeared kind of a sound. And yeah, whatever floats your boat, man. You know, that's what my wife would say. All right, so that was it. Sound clips with commentary, round 1 with the Bose 901s. I'm not done yet. I want to hear what you guys have to say based on the sound clips and my commentary, see what you guys think. We have some work cut out for us because, well, I have a heart to help people, and based on what I'm hearing so far, I've got some ideas. I've got some things that we could do that would definitely take this whole thing to a completely different level. So yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you know when the next video drops. And we'll see you guys in the next video.